Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to the May 12th edition of Wrestle Talk Show. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman. After about a week away, we're here to give you the latest and greatest professional wrestling news, bits, rumors, ins and outs of the first quarter WWE 2011 conference call that occurred last Friday. The ins and outs, the highlighted areas of that, pros and cons, where WWE did good, where WWE continues to see an issue, and the comments and everything in between. Hello again, like I said, I'm Joshua Zimmerman, your host today, and welcome to another edition of Wrestle Talk Show. Sorry about the delay, working out some house stuff and looking for a new line of work, so a little busy, trying to keep myself busy with other things. Sorry I let this go for too long. We're still doing everything that we broadcasted. The logo contest is almost closing. You have 2 more full days to officially submit your logo. Again, the Wrestle Talk Show logo contest, May 15th, before 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The updated edition for the show will be posted, and I will post a winner. I'll email the winner as that show is being recorded, or it'll be in the show. We'll announce the winner and the prize and all that. It'll probably be a wrestling DVD or something like that, just to so you don't get nothing too fancy, just something to say thanks for tuning in. As always, you can follow us on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/CWE Company, with over 100 plus videos posted. We try and do it every other day, every couple days. That way it's not repetitive, but you're as current as you can be. So let's move into just to finish one sentence and start another. Like you guys know, I'm not good at. There's only 2 stipulations to the logo contest. That they include the letters either the full show name, Wrestle Talk Show, or WTS. My name can be associated with it, but it's not a requirement. So again, Wrestle Talk Show or WTS. And you can send those submissions along with anything show-related, questions, comments, concerns, to cwecompany@gmail.com. Interact with us online, WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Submit a question to the forum. Click on the support the show link. Support us via PayPal with as little or as much as you want. Like I always say, if you can't do that, the next best thing, sometimes even better than cash, is referral. Tell a friend. Remember to like the video, comment on the video. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. All that and more on the show site and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CWE Company. So let's get into your wrestling for today, folks. We're going to give you the ratings for the week so far. Last week's TNA Impact, the May 5th edition, scored a 1.2 cable rating with about 1.5 million viewers, give or take 1.6. WWE Friday Night SmackDown for May 6th scored a 1.7 with about 2.8 million viewers. WWE Tough Enough did a 1.6, give or take 2.8 million viewers. WWE Monday Night Raw for May 9th scored a 3.2. Injury update, John Morrison will be out 4 to 6 weeks with a pinched nerve. WWE is saying, this is your wrestling news by the way, John Morrison will be out of action for 4 to 6 weeks due to a pinched nerve in his neck following an MRI procedure was performed by WWE Medical Director Dr. Joseph Maroon to, quote, alleviate pain and weakness in his arm. According to WWE's story, a small incision was made in the back of Morrison's neck to move the bone and the C5 and C6 discs from around the nerve root. WWE's ringside physician Christopher Amann said the procedure is considered, quote, minimally invasive, and the recovery time is typically 4 to 6 weeks, unlike other procedures such as those undergone by John Cena and Edge. With WWE's talent roster remarkably thin and made thinner by John Morrison injuries, 2 former stars that continue to pop up internally are Chris Jericho and Batista. Jericho has suggested publicly he wants to return once his Dancing with the Stars commitments are over, but only if he can come up with something original for his character. Jericho is trying to keep his return date a secret, and some people in WWE believe it will be several months away, according to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, and you can follow them at f4wonline.com. However, with the aforementioned talent depth issues, Jericho could come back sooner and work a limited schedule if needed. Batista, whose MMA aspirations appear to be on hold, is in a position where he is trying to follow the quote Stone Cold Steve Austin route of getting steady movie roles that won't be Hollywood blockbusters like The Rock, but will provide steady income. Within WWE's creative team, though, there is regular discussion of how to introduce Batista if he were to return, reports The Observer. Batista left the company almost exactly 1 year ago, doing some of his best work of his career, but he was burnt out on the schedule and believed he could try his hand at MMA. With MMA out of the picture for now, the schedule remains the largest obstacle to Batista's return if his movie career doesn't pan out. We comment on lack of insurance for wrestlers and lack of safety packages for the people that make Vince's millions. And as that's being said, this week UFC announces that more than 350 of its fighters now have enhanced medical coverage, and the UFC owner will pick up 100% of the premiums. The new coverage will include accidental injuries suffered in training, suffered during actual fights, injuries in non-training instances like automobile accidents. The new policy adds 24-hour worldwide medical life insurance and dental coverage, as well as emergency medical evacuation. And like I said, in addition, the promoter's covering 100% of the premiums and will dedicate specific staff to handling and processing claims. You remember him as the Hurricane. Wrestler Gregory Helms in serious accident with girlfriend Thursday night. TMZ reports police are investigating whether Gregory Hurricane Helms was intoxicated at the time of his motorcycle crash Thursday night that left Helms and his girlfriend Karen hospitalized with serious injuries. According to a witness cited in a police report, Helms and Karen were riding home from a restaurant in Smithfield, North Carolina around 9:15 p.m. when Helms went through a stop sign, lost control of his bike, and, quote, drove straight through the metal chain link fence. We already commented that Jericho wants to make a return, but wants it to be something new. Interesting little tidbit that we'll add on here. You'll notice if you're going to get WrestleMania 27 on DVD that the Triple H and Undertaker entrances were changed for the DVD. They're not the original WrestleMania entrances. MVP comments on his WWE release and butting heads with Vince McMahon. MVP is saying in interviews he could return to WWE down the road after fulfilling his career goal of wrestling in Japan. Quote, I had been on the road five years straight with no time off, and I just needed to relax my nerves, end quote. MVP said on the Right After Wrestling radio show this week, quote, it was weird because once I got a call from John Laurinaitis, basically WWE's talent relations, they agreed to give me my release. It was like a huge burden had been released from my shoulders, end quote. Since MVP wanted to pursue an existing opportunity in New Japan Pro Wrestling, MVP recalled Laurinaitis calling the New Japan office to confirm he had been released from his WWE contract. while hinting WWE wanted MVP back in the company eventually. While hinting they wanted MVP back in the company eventually. MVP relayed what Larinis told NJPW, quote, "They were expecting me to work in Japan for a year, maybe 2 years, and were hoping possibly have me return to WWE one day." MVP backed up talent relations long-term view that returning to the WWE down the road, quote, could happen, and he remains on good terms with the WWE despite butting heads with Vince McMahon creatively at the time of his departure. Quote, "It was very friendly. We're on good terms. There's no hostility. I still talk to John periodically," said MVP. Quote, MVP also said, "Never say never. I had an awesome time in WWE. I say this about Vince. Did Vince and I see eye to eye on everything? No, of course not. Towards the end, we were really on separate pages, but it's kind of a relationship that grows apart." So basically, in a nutshell, not much to discuss. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not much to discuss. Before we get into your conference call stuff, let's just put this out here, and it's basically UFC. I don't know if they did it intentionally or if they plan. Well, obviously they plan to do it, but I'd say this is the initiative we need, where if UFC can more than do it, and UFC doesn't even have, I don't want to pick on it, maybe I'm wrong here and you guys will call me out on it, but in comparison to the money WWE has, UFC seemed to be doing more with less, and now it looks like doing more with less paid dividends, because now every worker has some kind of safety net should something happen. And that's all I've ever argued with WWE. Nothing astronomical where you're supporting them for the next 3 to 5 years. Just something that says, hey, we have to buy out your contract. We're going to give you money for that. But also, while you're working for us, pay into this. That way, maybe for 6 months to a year after we let you go or you need a release due to an injury, there's something for you to work off of till you find other ventures. These guys that do the work job to make the other guys look better are the ones that get hurt, and then the jobbers sort of, and it's not always jobbers. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a prime example, but these guys that basically get hurt, and it's either, you're left to leave and then you return like an Edge, and you still got your fire and your fan base. But then there's the wrestlers that get hurt, say, that don't really have a chance to shine before their injury, and what do you know? It was a developmental deal. They got hurt, and now before they even had a chance to do anything, they've already risked it all to get there, but they're there, they get hurt, and then WWE buys out a couple grand in the developmental deal and basically covers the medical expense and goes wrestler shopping again, where my argument more or less pertains to the John Cena's, Randy Orton's, and your long-termers, where we're already seeing it now. What's going to happen when you get to this situation where you've got John Cena and Randy Orton, yeah, but you just lost John Morrison, who you were making it look like, or who you were giving a push to for 4 to 6 weeks. Now you have to come up with something new creatively for those two to do until John Morrison comes back, and it kind of throws creative, and I'm not defending them in any way, but more or less to just put a cap on this part of the argument is, if UFC can do it, WWE has more than enough money to do it. That UFC doing it just proved the point that there's no reason WWE can't do it. WWE, as I've emphasized before, and if you piece each video together, you get my insight on it, but WWE should more or less say, we're going to put up X amount of dollars, and for every dollar you put up, we'll match or come halfway, and that's just at the end of your contract term, or if your fire's not hot enough after we give you the sum of money for your buying out your contract. We're also going to give you times whatever you've paid into it because you've been with the company X amount of time. Thank you, John Cena. What are you going to do? Like, well, you're more like, my argument was your back's more or less against the wall now. I mean, creative, you have basically a standby for Jericho and Batista coming back because there's nothing else for creative to do. What does it say when two guys who more or less hint that their returns, they may return, but not anytime soon? Well, in Jericho's case, until he can come up with something fresh. But what does it say about your writing team that they have nothing else to do really? Everything's an in and out process, week in, week out, that we can plan for the eventual return of Jericho and Batista should it ever happen, because we're in a position where we might need it to happen, because not only have we not started any talent, but the talent we have started is hurt or needs a break. And that's just what I'm saying. Where do you go to put a pin in it, so to speak? Where my thing with insurance would be, either it would pay for something, as for an example, we're going to use John Cena. If John Cena were to get hurt, or if he doesn't get hurt, on top of what he makes at the end of his contract term, plus you could say, thanks for sticking it out. Thanks for giving us 5-10 years of your life. Here's a little something to supplement so you don't have to go back to work right away, so you can find work. But it also would serve a lot of purposes. It would cover premiums if said wrestler got hurt. And you would invest what you needed to invest. If you knew you were only bringing a guy in for developmental runs and a job to everybody else, maybe his package wouldn't be as big as a John Cena or a Randy Orton. But you would know that going in, and the wrestlers would get something. All I've ever implied at is something to say, hey, thanks for your dedication. You didn't get hurt. The goal wasn't for you to get hurt. This was in reserves. But since you didn't need it then, here it is now. Happy trails. Thanks for working with us. And it shows for even the people you want to keep on board repeatedly. It shows that as a promoter you care, and I don't think it takes much. Again, with UFC doing it, WWE's production values are up there to begin with. So if UFC can branch out and come up with premiums that cover everybody, why can't WWE? UFC obviously is looking out for the workers and not their pockets, because they know that this is just something that's going to make them look even better, and it does by default. And I argue that it forces the hand of WWE now. UFC proved that with they have a smaller account, rivaling account, but smaller operating income than WWE does, and these people managed to do it. So WWE's had years of this and haven't done it. There's a difference between not being able to and not wanting to. And I think hopefully with this, maybe it'll nudge with whatever Blumenthal comes up with the classification. And I think everything should be retroactive. Vince should pay something for the guys that make him his millions. Give them something that doesn't just say, you're going to make millions while you're good, but the minute you lose your flavor or get hurt, I'm just going to buy you out, cover your medical expenses, and that'll be the end of my business relationship with John Cena. Again, I'm just using an example. But say thank you to the guys that, hey, I got your back if something happens. Now, this extra coverage that UFC got, some of it they didn't even have to include. They threw in because they could. And when you take care of your people, it sends a good message. You're not going to get stand-up results, though you'll have your employees that will always find something to bitch about. But the employees that truly love the business will see that, hey, for once the promoter cares, and they're doing it for dollars a day per wrestler. Per performer, rather. Fighter, whatever adjective you want to use. And now, like we promised, I am sorry, it completely slipped my mind when we did the May 5th recording that I should have been on the ball a couple days right after, and even after reporting the shareholders meeting and the fact that it was coming up, I missed it and got a little bit behind. WWE reported last Thursday first quarter 2011 revenue of $119.9 million compared to $138.7 million in the prior year quarter. WWE also reported operating income of $13.2 million versus $37.3 million over $22.6 million adjusted in 2010 quarter one. Net income of $8.6 versus $14.7 million adjusted in 2010 quarter one. Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon noted that WWE is, quote, disappointed with the company's financial performance. He added the company's various business segments had mixed results. It takes a while to build new stars, and they had an increase in administrative expenses. WWE reported first quarter 2011 pay-per-view revenue of $13.5 million compared to $32.4 million in the prior year quarter, which includes revenue from WrestleMania 26. Removing WrestleMania 26, WWE reported an adjusted revenue figure of $13.4 million, which is essentially flat with the current year quarter. WWE reported studios revenue of $8.6 million in 2011 quarter one as compared to $3.4 million in 2010 quarter one. The comparability is skewed by WWE not releasing any movies under their new distribution model in the prior year quarter. WWE launched a new model in fall 2010. Beyond revenue, WWE reported a $2.8 million, quote, impairment charge from John Cena's movie 12 Rounds due to, quote, revised long-term ultimate projections for this film, end quote. WWE noticed film profits declined $5.5 million from the prior year quarter, driven by the aforementioned impairment charge, lower receipts from our other licensed film, and previously disclosed change in our distribution model for films, end quote. Just to give you a look-see on how the pay-per-view business is doing, we have the buy rates for the last couple pay-per-views. The Royal Rumble got 446,000 buys compared to 462,000 in quarter one of 2010. Elimination Chamber got 199,000 buys versus 285,000 buys in quarter one of 2010. WrestleMania will be reported in quarter two of 2011. It got 885,000 buys. It reported 885,000 buys in quarter one of 2010. And finally tonight, our question will be popping up with the follow-up stories that we've forgotten and everything like that. But let's get our plugs out of the way. You can visit my friends James Cobwell and Wade Keller at pwtorch.com. Their weekly live cast 7 to 8 p.m. Monday nights 5:30 to 6:30, Tuesdays through Friday Eastern. You check them out at pwtorch.com. Jason Powell at ProWrestling.net is all access free audio. Become a member of both sites for as little as $5 a month, about $5 a month each. Exclusive content, full coverage, breaking news, ad-free versions of the website. Our site, youtube.com/CWE Company. Remember, I can't stress this enough. Help us with numbers. If you can't help us financially, it's understandable. But if you can, a little bit goes a long way. Every dollar will be reported in this show, and every dollar will go to the production and making this a better show. I am working on co-hosts. We're going to get the contest out of the way. I believe the May 15th show will basically be giving you an outline of the next 30 days. We'll give you the 1-year anniversary breakdown, what we're going to try and plan. We're working on that. We'll do the contest winner. We'll possibly do the website launch either the 15th or, like I said, we'll do the full website launch after about 6 to 8 months down. We'll do a complete relaunch either at that show or save it for the 1 year. Like I said, we want to have a special edition, probably over an hour of free content just for the 1 year anniversary show. I gave you the base figures. We'll come back in videos in the week and touch on each subject. But basically, the question for the day, and submit your answers at cwecompany@gmail.com. Open a discussion on the forum, WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Visit the interactive forum. Support the show. YouTube.com/CWE Subscribe. Like the video. Comments on the video. I'll implement your comments into each and every video. I usually throw back. I respond right back. But basically, let's get the question out, and then we'll discuss the other stuff that we just brought up. The question is, do you agree with me and think that since UFC made this monumental move to protect its, I'll use the word entertainers, but fighters, to protect its workers nonetheless, do you think that a smaller company than WWE doing this will nudge WWE in the direction of what I'm hoping is, hey, people with less money than you are able to do this. Why aren't you doing it? And what do you think about that? Submit your answers to cwecompany@gmail.com. Post them on the forum. Support the show. Refer a friend. SmartWrestlingFan.com. Every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central. Joe Negron and Cass bring you the week in pro wrestling. A 9 to midnight show usually, but if you watch it live, you usually get an extra half hour to an hour of content. Depending, you'll notice that a lot of what you hear on Tuesday night has been edited out for the Wednesday morning post to the show. So I encourage you to catch them every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, smartwrestlingfan.com. Check them out. And that's all for now, folks. But, well, no, it's not. But let's just recap what we discussed. And it actually shines light on a couple other things on the before mentioned. Is WWE is noticing losses. While Royal Rumble lost about 18,000 buys, give or take, 1822. Elimination Chamber, about, yeah, down 86,000 buys. Last year's WrestleMania recorded 885,000 buys, and WWE's already hinted that they believe with The Rock they're already over the 1 million globally. But more or less, I may have mentioned this when he was, palling around with shareholders last week, but they were going to come in strong with everything else except pay-per-view. They were disappointed with it all around, but like WWE does every quarter, for every area they lose money, they've made money in a consistent area, if that makes sense. WWE has so many areas of the business that if live events or whatever is down, WWE Shops is down, there's something else that they're doing, whether it be licensing or what have you, that sort of offsets their quote-unquote loss. So what I more or less do, and maybe this is a bad way of doing it, but I more or less don't like to beat around the bush. You report revenue of 119.9. Now from that, everything else is broken down, but that's the figure I would run with, 119.9 compared to 138.7 last year. So just look. Basically, it says we paid all the bills. This is what we walked away with free and clear. Yeah, to get this figure, you have to break everything down. But at the end of the day, all the bills are paid, and WWE made $119.9 million. It's still losing money. I believe we're going on our third year of consistent, steady losses, hence why they're implementing all these changes with the dividend policy, and they'll be able to ride that out for a couple quarters. I believe you'll hear that be factored into a lot before it's not an issue anymore. If you ask me, part of it might be the truth. Yeah, you have to offset it because I mean, it's pretty, I've argued this before, but it's pretty bad when it's your shareholders that say, hey, we'd rather less money and the long-term success of the company rather than you just keep paying us off and running this the way you see fit. And there's a lot of there's a lot of points you could take it and say, all right, is this a point where Vince should, pass the torch? And it'll come, but I still argue that even with all your losses, you're still making money. There's still money to be made in it, not as much as the year before, the year before that. And as me and a fan of the show, Justin, and potential columnist Justin mentioned, is the old stuff's always good because they knew how to do it. For some reason, something changed and they tried too hard, and then other weeks they don't try enough. So, I mean, but to just come back to what I was talking about, I take that figure and then everything else, when I get the breakdown, everything else is just gravy on top of it, because in my eyes, with everything, all the little bookmarks in the report, the only thing that really matters is at the end of the day, WWE made $119.9 million, and it's down from $138.7 this time last year. That is what I would focus on, and then you can break it down and say, well, pay-per-view did this, studios did this, WWEshop.com did this or didn't do this, magazine sales did this or didn't do this. So, but to me, that first sentence kind of sets the tone, and then everything else. He more or less hinted last week to expect pay-per-views to be one of the areas of concern. Now that he's lost Morrison's, one might hope that they have somebody else to step up and can move somebody like they were moving Morrison, except be like, okay, we weren't going to move you till after Morrison, but you have to do everything we had planned for Morrison and give somebody else that push. There's nobody telling me that even with Morrison gone, that you can't find somebody to use. I thought R-Truth was going to do it as much as we joked, but it would actually be good. The man's been there 3 times, like I said before last week. If he was going to get a push, now's the time, because normally first of all, most don't get 3 opportunities, and the ones that do normally fizzle out on their second, so the third is just a formality, and they wind up phasing themselves out. R-Truth is kind of between R-Truth and K-Quick, has seemed to keep himself relevant, and I seen this as a good move. So why is it being shuffled? Why can't we just continue? All right, Morrison's out. Continue to push someone else. It doesn't mean stop because the guy you eyed up is gone. It just means move somebody in that spot, and it all comes full circle with my don't put a cap on your roster, rotate them out. That way different wrestlers have different periods in the year where they break and different periods in the year where they work. But it's a cycle, and if you don't put a cap on your talent, you can cycle it in and out. But we'll have more to discuss on WWE first quarter earnings, your wrestling news, bits, and rumors. Kevin Nash and people close to the Hall family are still concerned about Scott Hall's medical condition, all that and much more. For your ins and outs in between time, like I said, visit my friends Wade Keller and James Codwell at pwtorch.com or prowrestling.net for the day in pro wrestling. And for Wrestle Talk Show, folks, again, get your logo entries in. WTS or Wrestle Talk Show must be used. My name can be in there, but it's not a requirement. Visit us on youtube.com/CWE Company. All correspondence, CWEcompany@gmail.com. Thanks, and have an excellent night, guys.